Yeah, we were talking about your very end of your stint at Rhythm and Hues, working on the Manhattan project.
The Manhattan Project?
I just slipped
Oh,
that in there, but no,
oh no, no, it wasn't.
it was futuristic Manhattan working with Mark Stetson and another gentleman, Richard
Yes,
Edlin.
Richard Edlin.
Yeah.
So, um, it was amazing because normally when you do commercials, as you know, they happen really quickly. But there's always a fast level of acceleration with those kind of projects because normally, unless it's a really big epic thing, they don't give them a lot of time to really shoot it. Once they pick a team, so they had picked not Rhythm and Hues, but they had picked Richard Edlin to do it, and they didn't have a visual designer. And Sid Mead suggested that they try and work with me.
Mm.
And it was, pretty much architectural, with a little futurism thrown in there, which was the kind of work I had done in the past, and I did the sketches for them, and they liked everything I did right away. They didn't even ask me for any changes, so I was like, wow. So I submitted the drawings, and they called me in. I don't know how long it took, maybe 2 weeks later. And they're ready to shoot this thing.
Mm.
And they had filled an entire soundstage, and they had built these models that went all the way up to the ceiling. I don't know how tall they were. They probably were. The tallest ones were probably like 15 feet tall, maybe. And what they did is they forced the perspective.
Yep.
So that as you went down the street, the buildings got smaller and smaller, but it was so realistic, and they were using all these high intensity bulbs that burn really hot.
Mm-hmm.
But when you photograph them, they looked like real lights, not just little weak flashlight things. They really burned hot. But I was just so impressed with those guys we were doing in such a short period of time. I didn't even have to supply them with a lot of drawings, but what they built looked just like my drawings.
Wow.
Yeah, those guys are really sharp, really smart. It was fun to see it when it played during the Super Bowl, and I think it was like a 30-second commercial, and it was kind of one and done. I never saw it again, but I did happen to see it, and it was cool. It was fun, and I learned a lot just working with those guys. They were really, I think they were some of the best people I think in the business at the time.
At the time, yeah.
So yeah, that was fun, and I lucked out on a lot of things where I got opportunities that came my way without really pushing for them, which
Mm-hmm.
I've always appreciated. That I'm not very outgoing or in terms of going after things. When I was younger I was, but not as I got older. I became a little bit more reserved in that I never wanted to oversell myself and underdeliver.
Mm.
And I think what happens to especially a lot of creative people when they do have a lot of success, then they kind of start overselling themselves. And I always wanted to keep my reputation intact, so I would always be I'd always be optimistic and thank people for giving me the opportunity, but at the same time, I've had people believe in me more than I believed in myself, and it's because they're believing me that made me work so hard. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Always kind of a little reclusive and quiet, reserved, but you do have your moments, from what I can remember. At
Well, you got to
DIC.
give me an example of one of those.
Yeah. You sometimes you kind of come out of nowhere, and especially when we were younger at DEEC or DIC, but you seem to be a little more reserved at Rhythm and Hues. Is that because because of the reputation? Because the members came from a very famous studio from late 80s.
Right.
Is it
I
Abel and
Yeah,
Associates?
it was Robert Abel
Yeah.
and Associates, and yeah, no, it was obviously Rhythm and Hues was a great place to be. I think there was just a certain level of maturity,
Yeah.
and where there's a certain level of humility that comes into play, especially when you're surrounded by so many high level, talented people.
Yeah.
And I've never been good necessarily of trying to make a lot of noise. I try to spend a lot of time listening.
Hmm.
So I think I was more at a point where I just wanted to listen and learn and try to stay on top of things. I mean, I still have fun and could be loose, but I really, I just wanted to rise to the occasion, both professionally and artistically. So, um, I was just, I guess, in a different space, a different frame of mind, from when maybe I was a little, but actually I've always been the same. I was going to say when I was younger, because I would be aggressive in terms of getting work when I was young, but I was still quiet when I got the work. I guess I've
Yeah.
always been quiet and shy.
Shy.
No, totally, dude. I remember when I was even 19 and 20, and there was a buddy of mine. We used to go to parties, and there was a party that was going on. I was very quiet, kind of in the corner, by myself,
Hmm.
just watching everybody enjoy themselves. And one of my friends, um, one of his friends came up to him and said, "When are you gonna put the key in him and wind him up?" Like it's like this guy's like, but that's always been me. I don't know. When I get comfortable with someone, you know how I am. I'll open up, and I'm a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, I mean, I guess in a lot of ways, it's I've kind of always had this thing where I like to look and try to get to understand people before I get involved with them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I'm still that way to this day. I'm pretty reclusive still, and that's probably why even earlier you were saying that I was a bit of an enigma because people didn't know where I was or what I was doing, and I think that's still a big part of who I am. And uh, I don't really have a lot of people in my life. I have a lot of friends and people that I could talk to on various things, but I don't know. I'm just not as outgoing as a lot of people when it comes to um, you know some people have a persona or this personality that you know they're just good with everybody.
Mm.
Um, but I'm a little bit more. I'm a study of human nature, so I'd rather spend time watching people than sometimes interacting.
Yeah. Totally. Going back to with the Muse, you said that you got hooked up with Dan Quanstrom um, to start at Rhythm and Hues. How was that start for you? I mean, with Clark Anderson, and you were with your future partner, Lauren Lanning, at Oddworld. So, kind of a segue from the Richard Edlund project into Oddworld, unless you don't want to talk about that.
No, yeah, I'm totally cool with that. The Oddworld Inhabitants thing was really a great opportunity. Lauren and I and Sherry and we had worked on Safari together
Yeah,
over
Safari.
and that was probably one of my favorite things that I worked on while I was there because I had a lot of creative license
Mm,
on a lot of parts of that film, the short film.
yeah,
Uh, People that don't know that it was actually a motion-based ride. It was for a Japanese amusement park, and um, it was really cool. It was really different. Um, but I was kind of the guy that had done, I would say, a majority of the visual development, certainly for Rhythm and Hues, but then there was also work that was being done at Universal. in LA as well.
Yeah.
Worked with Mario Camberg, I believe,
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
from Universal.
I see.
And so no, that was a fun thing, and that's when I started spending a lot more time working directly with Lauren.
Hmm.
Uh, and he was always very complimentive of my work and my you know, he liked my creativity. He liked my ideas. So that's kind of when our relationship started in terms of, and then obviously I admired him because he was really a super smart guy and he was highly creative.
Yeah.
And that's where that thing started. But I think a good lesson that I learned at Rhythm and Hues is that I had to do a lot of different things. You would just jump subjects,
Oh
and
yeah.
because yeah, and so it kind of opens you up to, first of all, not only did the projects move fast, but you never knew what you were going to work on,
Hmm.
and you had to solve problems quickly. And everything I did while I was there obviously wasn't a science fiction product like Safari. It would be a whole bunch of different things. Um, and that started making me actually, um, kind of open up my range, and it helped me improve my problem solving. Um, and I think then when Lauren started talking to me about, starting a video game company, and he said he wanted me to help do the visual development. Um, I was ready to take on something like that because I did feel comfortable with all of the training and the work and the kind of the breadth and diversity of things I had worked on.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, it was fun. And it's a bit scary when you jump out there, and it was really only the three of us when we started in this little tiny office. And we left the Los Angeles area and moved up to San Luis Obispo.
Yeah.
And but it was fun because I was able to, um, I took Lauren's story and his ideas, um, and I had told him, I said, well, let me see what I can come up with in terms of visuals. But um, I think that was one of the few, if probably the only IP I actually worked on where we took some chances visually. We I got more work approved than what wasn't approved.
Mm.
And most of the time, the stuff that was approved was stuff that I actually thought, well, I think that could work.
Mm.
Um, so it was good chemistry. It was and it just fit the vibe, and it was a little bit weirder than a lot of stuff I worked on visually.
Yeah.
And it had to be a little bit more organic and use a lot more natural elements for the different levels of the game. And I had a blast doing it. And that's actually when I started actually using the computer for my work. And I remember Lauren kept pressing me on it, and I was always intimidated. And he taught me something I never forgot. He said, you only need a few tools. You don't need to know the whole thing. Just use what you need." And it was like, how that makes sense, because normally when you think you need to be a programmer sometimes to use a computer. I mean, at least that's how I felt way back in the day, because I didn't grow up with computers. Obviously, I didn't touch a computer until I was in my 40s. Um, but that was cool, and I remember the very first painting I did, digital painting. It was my very first one. It was I think it was of the Mudakin factory.
Oh yeah, I remember that. It was yeah, dark and muted.
Yeah, smoke and fire coming out of the stacks, and it was very mechanical looking, and I kind of wanted to feel alive a little bit, like a
Yeah.
big organism. Um, and I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. Because I was doing mostly gouache and acrylic paintings or pencil drawings, um, and that was my very first piece that I did in the computer. And Lauren, he liked it. I didn't know if he would like it or not, and so it gave me confidence that, like, so I started mixing it up. I would still do, probably three-quarters of my work kind of, analog. But then as I tried to learn more and push things more, I added a little bit more and more Photoshop to my work until, to this day, it's total flip now. I probably do 75% in the box and about 25% traditional.
Hmm.
Um, and certainly when I do things for myself, I always start 100% analog. But I find most of the time, just because I know I have to turn the work over
Yeah.
to someone, I just make sure it always has, the look that people are expecting. So I keep it pretty much 100% of my work actually professionally is digital. Only my personal works are kind of start out in a place where I just doodle around and try to come up with something, and then I'll get it into the computer, and then I'll
Yeah.
manipulate it from there. But yeah, no, that was a good experience, and it was a lot of fun doing that, and I did enjoy the freedom, and in retrospect, you think that you're going to have those opportunities come back again and again, but a lot of times they don't. Like I say, the level of freedom I had and the ability to do what I did on that, although I worked on a lot of cool things and have made an impact, I don't ever feel I had that level of trust and belief in me just being able to express myself, and someone had enough confidence in it to still say that there was value, even if they didn't agree with it 100%. They were, they still had enough belief in it, and I think this nowadays as professionals, I think a lot of times people in leadership roles, like art directors and producers and directors, they don't have that level of confidence in themselves, so they try and push you to be maybe a little bit safer,
Mm. Yeah.
because I think that they're just like everyone, they're trying to find that safe, sweet spot, and it doesn't mean they don't want to try and push things, but it means they're going to pick and choose, sometimes in a limited way, what you're really able to go all out with. And I don't know, I've known a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people, and I do discuss these things with other, artists and designers, because sometimes I think I'm the only one that feels that way. I don't know how you feel or how other people feel that talk to you, but I hear it more often than not that a lot of people feel very limited creatively. And, they can do pretty stuff and nice things given whatever the assignment is, but they feel like, man, if they just let me just push it just 10, 15% more, man, I think I can do something better with it.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know. I mean, I guess that's just the nature of business right now. And like I say, when back in those days, especially when I was at Oddworld, I thought there would be a lot of opportunities like that, because obviously that industry was growing, and uh, even the technology was allowing us to do things in movies, which there's a lot of great visualization and stuff going on in movies now, but um, I think it's always more now about kind of an epic magnitude of things to see, which you can't see because there's so much going on, all that beautiful work in all these various areas. And, you know, it's almost like there's 1,000 things on the screen at one time, and I don't even know what to focus on. And the action, and it's just everything is just moving way too fast for me. My favorite science fiction film of all times is 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I still haven't seen anything that tight. And even with all the technology and stuff that we do, that film, even when you watch it today, still seems convincing.
Yeah.
Whereas when I see films now, I know that it's a technology kind of explosion, um, and there's a lot of great things going on. But sometimes I wish they would slow things down a little bit. Um, Stanley Kubrick, who did 2001, he's also one of my favorite directors of all time.
Mm-hmm.
He started out as a photographer,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
so he always knew about composition and lighting and every film. And there's several films of his, by the way. I just break them down frame by frame by frame, and I have them in folders,
Mm.
and I can see the whole movie. And there's 1,000 paintings in each one of those movies.
Yeah.
He never cluttered it. You could always tell where the action was, what you needed to focus on. He always had great foreground, middle ground, background. I love that type of filmmaking over the stuff that we see now. It's a little over sensationalized, and there's, like I said, there's a lot of beautiful work in them, but there's just so much going on. For me, I walk out of a movie exhausted. It's like,
Oh, with a headache.
yeah, because or maybe it's just the pace of the way my brain works these days. But I'm trying to think of any films I've seen recently that really uh, kind of hit that mark for me. I can't think of anything off my head that you know kind of goes back to guys like Stanley Kubrick and a few others back in the day that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
But things have changed and things are different, and the idea that I told you I had for a story, which if I was going to do something cinematic with it, it would probably be um, a lot easier on the eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be easier for you to focus. I would still want things to feel epic,
Yeah.
but it's like what makes the Grand Canyon so beautiful when you're standing on that edge is that you can actually see it
Mm.
and you feel, the scale of it. And a lot of times there's so much clutter in movies now. They have a huge scale, but it almost feels like you're inside of a pillbox. There's no airspace between all the elements and the shapes and the action and the effects, and there are so many layers to what's there because they're able to put layers there. They kind of miss the point that there's still an overall product that you know could probably be a lot simpler and read a lot stronger. Uh, that's just my opinion. I'm not a movie critic, so that's not my business. But I am an artist, and you know, the you know, I'm a student. I'm trying to learn still, so I'm trying to figure out why that type of thing works now, and um, I'm still not necessarily the guy that wants to replicate that, but there are things that I can take and learn from it, and then try to add it to whatever my encyclopedia of ideas are.
Yeah.
Um, or my toolbox, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Kind of going back to Rhythm and Hues, because that's when we were working last, I think. But a lot of people don't know that Doug Chang was there, but he left before I started, I think. He
he
went,
left before I started there too.
wow.
Uh-huh. I met him through someone from Rhythm and Hues, maybe a year or a little bit more than a year after I started working there. Somebody told me about him. I had saw actually some of his work that he
Yeah.
had done at Rhythm and Hues, and then I said, "Oh, I'd like to meet the guy." And I got a family, live up in the Bay Area, and so we did get together, and I finally met him. He's one of the nicest, most talented guys out there, and he's super smart. But he was always very gracious and nice, and for someone who has the level of success he has, there's always a certain level of humility,
Hmm.
that makes it really hard not to like the guy. You
Hmm.
know, I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah,
just he's not overpowering. He's cool and he's very smart.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I've been able to meet him, and I don't remember some of the other people that I met through the Rhythm and Hues. Did I leave Rhythm and Hues before you?
Uh, yeah, you actually left Rhythm and Hues towards 1995 when we were in Hollywood office
Oh yeah, I
in,
remember that.
in Sycamore Avenue, I think. And Dan was there, Lauren was there. I was invited to come by this guy, Larry Weinberg.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
I remember him. He was super smart.
yeah, he's like a brainiac.
Oh, he was
And
a genius. Yeah.
yeah, so was Charlie. Charlie Gibson was
Charlie
really,
Gibson was a
he was
genius. He
like,
was brilliant.
he was scary smart.
Yeah, yeah. It
And
was.
and all this there, it was like kind of like before ILM, Sony, ImageWorks, and these other places. Rhythm and Hues had them all. They had the arts, they had the 3D, they had the programmers, but later they kind of all left to go up to other places like
Right.
ILM, Sony, and you could see, their involvement in and influence, and also we can't forget the god of digital painting, Craig Mullins was at working at Rhythm and Hues too.
Yeah, I remember.
Remember him?
Uh-huh. I remember when he first started doing the computer stuff because he was a great analog artist as well. You know, his 2D stuff was amazing.
Hmm.
Uh, and I remember he would like take images like from magazines and stuff, and he would kind of cut them out, and then he would collage them.
Yeah.
You know, they were all in the same perspective and everything, but then that's what he would do. Then he would scan that in, and then he would paint over the top of it. Um, it was really early on, and obviously the tools for say Photoshop are nothing like they are now, and he just found a way to make it work. But he was another amazing talent that went through there.
Yeah.
I mean, even on the Safari project, uh, um, Ralph McQuarrie, he painted my drawings.
Oh, Ralph did?
Oh yeah, for Safari.
Oh, yeah, I do remember coming across the image. And I'm like, oh my God, you got the godfather of concept art working.
I know,
And
and
that's what,
well, I have copies of those.
oh, I am like,
And
I'm like, God, you guys are big time. That's when I started to get really intimidated because I would just, I just wanted to work there only because I saw Safari, like the test animation of Safari, because somebody was showing me around. I think Larry was showing me around, and
hmm
I met Min and all those guys, and I even saw that sculpture of the creature. I'm like, I've never seen anything like it. Uh, I came out from New York, and they had no studio. They had like a motion graphics studio out there, but I've never seen like a creature, like a 3D creature that at that time was really, really realistic. I mean, that was hyper realistic. Because only because I didn't see anything like it before. So yeah,
yeah,
it was.
Lauren designed that creature.
Oh, you didn't do that?
No, I didn't do. I did all the mechanical stuff, like
Oh, okay.
the submarines and the sea base and the dolphin pack and like that stuff. But that was Lauren's baby. He wanted to do that.
Oh,
So, um, but yeah, I remember when when they start sculpting it, and I think they sculpted it like on a piece of mirror or something, because then you could see the whole shape. The big sculpey one.
yeah. The only sculpted. Oh yeah, I think I've actually came back to Rhythm Used in 2008. I went straight to that sculpture and took a lot of pictures of it because I liked it so much.
No, no. I said, yeah. I remember when they were working on it when they finally built it.
Mm.
I'm not talking about the digital part. I'm talking about the
The
they did this
sculpture.
the big sculpture first,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
which was pretty cool.
yeah.
And um, it was just fun seeing all these different people come together using the technology, especially on the final motion based thing. Um, but there was another guy I met there that I just saw recently. But you know Richard Taylor?
Oh, the director.
Yeah, Richard Taylor.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, it
He
was.
had he had a lot of collection of cars. Those 1/18th models of cars.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy. I was lucky enough to bump into him sometime at the beginning of the year, and I asked him. I said, "Do you remember me?" He said, "I remember your face." He said, "I don't remember your name." And I
Oh
told him
my.
I told him my name, and he was very cool, very nice. I said, "Well, I got a story that you're going to remember."
Okay.
I said, "I remember you came to Rhythm and Hues one day. You were at the desk talking to some guys, and I came up behind and gave you a big hug. And I said you had just broke your ribs skiing, and I didn't know your ribs."
Ah.
And he just turned around in so much pain. You're like, whoa. And then he remembered me. He says, "Now I remember you." He said, "Yeah." He said, "I had a big tree mark on my chest where I hit the tree."
Oh
So
shit! Like a pine
yeah,
tree.
so it looked like, yeah, like when they hit this log that built
Oh,
right into
log.
his chest where he hit the tree skiing, because he had this beautiful ski lodge.
Uh huh.
And I don't remember where it was now. I just saw pictures of it. But then he remembered me, and it was funny. I said I knew a little pain would bring
Uh,
back
yeah,
the
yeah.
the connection. But he was a super nice guy. And even the last time when we finally got reacquainted and I could talk, it was there's a lot of places where you work, and sometimes you know the people kind of come and go, but then there's individuals that just stick with you. You just, out of the thousands of people maybe you work alongside of, there's a fair share that you find that your relationship just goes beyond our appreciation for the arts. But there's also, and this is a big thing that I would tell people, is that it's what helps your work are obviously seeing things that influence you, but also being around people that can help add or influence you, and just having experiences. And it makes you so much more creative, especially when there's a good circle of people you can pass things off of. And because a lot of people think it's just about how much time you spend in the studio,
Hmm.
but a lot of times it's about having an equal amount of time away from it, out of the studio, where you continue to grow and expand. So I would say that's really important. I mean, people used to ask me, like, what kind of pencil do you use? What kind of paper? What kind of music do you listen to when you're working? I was like, whoa. I was like, I didn't know those
That's too
things.
personal.
No, no, it's not personal at all. It's like that stuff doesn't create the work for me though. None
Uh-huh.
of that stuff does.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not now. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah. It was like, well, those are just things. I mean, if I have a crayon, I'll use a crayon. Think I I don't set out to use certain tools until I'm ready to actually execute on something final. And then I figure out, okay, now I got to use this tool or that tool or the other thing. But when I was putting ideas down, I'd do anything. I mean, sometimes I would just sketch with paint. I didn't even, I didn't draw. Sometimes I just had whatever I had out. I would just use that, and work over the top of something else I had been working on, just to sketch something out really quick. It just depends on what I had.
Yeah.
But I try to tell people is, at the end of the day, yes, you need to know, you have to have a plan to execute it so that people can understand what your idea is. But don't be limited by the tools that you have to come up, see if you have an idea or not. If you got to draw in the sand, then draw in the sand, man. It doesn't matter, right? I've never been all about, I'm not a real techniquey guy. I just use what I have. Um, and I would encourage people to never let a technique get in the way of your creativity. Put the ideas and the creativity first. And, after you get the ideas down, then figure out your path to execution. But
Yeah.
don't be hampered. Don't let one take over the other, you know. Um, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I've been trying to approach things.
Yeah. To tie that with what you said before, like how movies now are so detailed and just you don't know where to look. That comes from technique, because my feeling is that the directors, the you know, they're much younger, some of them,
So,
or yeah, than us. So they came up, uh, digitally with uh, that world, but we came up from analog. So and with digital tools, they can add stuff. They keep adding, and they feel that having a lot of details, the audience is gonna get their money's worth. I've heard that a few times too. So it's become so gimmicky and technicky that's going to, like I said before, get the audience uh, involvement, also get their money's worth. But before that, there were like Stanley Kubrick. Some shots was very empty, and with the emptiness, it invokes your own imagination. But with what you see now, it's just so overly detailed and so complex. But that comes from, I think, the gimmicky technique that the artists, even concept artists, um, where they visualize things now. So director likes, sees it, likes it because it's so detailed. They think that makes it a better picture. That could be
yeah,
part of the reason.
I think you're right. I think it's a cultural thing, and I guess the digital age has done a lot of wonderful things, as we know, but also it's kind of created issues where people are kind of impatient. Um, they kind of want to. I mean, they like kind of being punched in the face, right? That's they love all that stuff coming at them,
Yeah.
because it makes them, I guess, feel like their brain is like a computer and it can process all of these things at one time, which I know they really can't. No human can. But I think that's part of the culture, is that people think they're like computers, and they think they can process it and take it all in and understand it or get it or even see it. And I'm talking mostly from a visual standpoint.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I think special effects in most movies have kind of taken it over. And I'm not talking just about fantasy sci-fi. Even in just regular films, they'll have so much stuff going on in just a slice of life film from 2020. A day in the life of 2020, and the actors are on the screen like there's like 15 minutes of dialogue in a 2-hour movie, and everything else is just stuff. Um, doesn't matter what kind of film it is. Obviously, I would say, I would quantify that as saying the films that are special effects films,
Hmm.
they have less going on. I actually like a lot of the indie films because they don't have the budgets. They don't have the the big ticket, high profile players, so they actually can occasionally get away with actually making a film about something that when you walk out, you feel something, you get it, you get the characters. There's definitely not enough character development in films now. It's always sensational, over the top. Bam, introduce a guy and he's. Oh, there's a movie I saw recently that I liked. Um, what's it called? There's a Batman movie. I think it was the last one that came out. I don't remember the working title though. You know what I'm talking about? I think his last name is Phoenix. I think.
Oh, I haven't been following it. a lot of
Oh,
the movies lately, but I'll look it up. Is
Jake,
that
Jaquan Phoenix, or I don't know how to pronounce his first name, but that was probably the best Joker movie I've
oh
ever seen.
Joker movie?
Did I? What
Oh,
did I say?
you said Batman?
Oh no, I meant Joker. I consider that part of the Batman series. Um,
Yeah.
but I
Oh,
like that movie.
okay, that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's a very sad, depressing movie, but there was some good character development in that film. Even with some characters that had minor roles, they weren't there unless they were part of the story. They fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they didn't need a big, a lot of screen presence to have an impact on the story and the development of the story. I don't like things that are depressing and necessarily that violent, but in that case, that's a movie I actually really I've watched it more than once. I think I've seen it 3 times.
Is that
Um,
is that the Joker movie? Came
uh,
out 2019 with
yeah, I think
Joaquin Phoenix.
that's his name. Yeah, and the guy like lost a lot of weight
Oh
to
yeah,
play
yeah,
the
for the role. Yeah.
dude. He was creepy, man.
He was creepy in Gladiator too, as the brother. Man, I hated that guy just from that movie.
Yeah, no, I don't remember that, but I did see that movie too. But I don't remember. He seems like he's been making movies a long time, but he still kind of looks the same. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't seem to age. Um, which maybe he's an alien. I don't know.
I,
He's an outer space guy. But I don't know. I just loved his role. I loved the film. I loved the story. I love the fact that I could actually it was over the top sometimes, but it was just enough for you to get to feel something. And then then the director would take it back down, right? And let he lets you enjoy that moment
moment.
of
Yeah.
chaos, and then he'd bring you to something a little quieter so that it would set up the next big build up to something. And I don't know, that's just good storytelling, good pacing, I should say, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where everything now, there's right after the credits, man, the thing is just bam, it's gone. It's like it's like sometimes I just want to slow it down. I want to process what I'm looking
Sure.
at.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like I say, though, it's a cultural thing, and I think that is just how people are. And they think that if it's not over the top or it's not just cluttered with stuff, then they didn't do a good job. They didn't work hard enough. And I like the opposite. I say you actually got to work a little harder to evoke a feeling
Yeah.
that is more succinct, more direct, but not having to over rely on sound and effects and and even technology for that point to try and bring it home. You should only use those to enhance the story, not to make it the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's I think the studio heads, like Paramount, Warner Brothers, and all these studio heads had a lot of input in those things because they're. It seems like they make movies now to make money, and you brought up this fact the last time we talked. Yeah, it's just bottom line. It's just like the way you worked on Spiral Zone. Spiral
Uh-huh.
Zone, the big shots, the big wigs, they're just looking at bottom line
Yeah,
and
I
how
mean
much
that's
they can make. Yeah,
ain't nothing wrong with making money, but why you can still make a good product and make money. And
yeah,
everything doesn't have to be kind of hacked. Um, and that's why I say that every once in a while a smaller film will come out and sneak its way in. It's like, wow, that wasn't too bad of an experience. That was pretty good. And but certainly the big budget, high profile films, there's more people making decisions and they take less risk on them. So I mean, I guess that's what they feel they have to do. They're safe with it. Sometimes it works for them, and a lot of times it doesn't work for them. So all that overthinking they do to get something on the screen, especially if it has an epic budget, that doesn't mean you're going to be successful with it if you don't do a really good job with the product. And even though they think they've done a good job with the product, they probably snipped and cut a lot of corners out of things. I recently worked on something. I'm not even going to say what it is, but it was right there in front of me, and it just got worse and worse and worse as time went on, and it got to the point that it was gone, and everybody knew outside of certain people and up didn't get it, and it was a shame. There were really talented people that worked on it, and then they would move on or quit before the thing was even done because it was. And initially, the work was really beautiful on it. I actually came in kind of in the middle of it, and some great people working on it then. And it's like, wow, this has a lot of, it's interesting potential. Certainly from a visual standpoint, anyway.
Yeah.
And then it just, my goodness, it was so sad to see so much good work early on visually get thrown out, and the film looked nothing. The potential was there, but then the direction got a little messed up, and that changed the story a little bit, and then it just kind of became its this thing that just didn't really have any identity. Nobody could relate to it, and it just ended up not working. But it was also tied into a product line, and they had all that figured out before they actually figured out how to make a good film. Really,
Yeah.
and it was like, okay. I mean, I never understand that. I never understand it. No one a lot of times will make a $100 investment in something new, different, and creative, but they'll spend $100 million on something. Dude, that's a bad investment. You're throwing too much into one hat, and it's not necessary. Even the budgets on video games now, they're so huge.
I know. Yeah.
And it's like, really, I could make 5 good games, and and it cuts my losses if one of them doesn't hit. But if you put that much money in one game and it doesn't hit, and then everybody start pointing fingers and laying people off, and you know how it works.
Yeah.
And I've seen it a lot of times, and it's sad. It's like, if you have that much money to invest, I totally believe in, go after the big epic things, but scrape a little off the top and have some other things going on the side where, especially with video games, it's all about gameplay, right? And coming up with technology that can support it. So, have some ideas going around, have people working on some toolboxes of things and some gameplay mechanics and some things. And a lot of times that stuff is more important than, the story and the visuals for that matter. There's been a lot of not so attractive games that don't have very good stories, but that gameplay just makes it work and people will play them. But if you can accompany great gameplay mechanics and then, you can layer up, a good story and some good visuals, and make sure that the game progresses with the player, and that, as the player gets better, it becomes a little less predictable on how to use it, because that's really what you want. You want the player to feel like, you want them to feel successful because this is a game that has some challenges, and anybody, if you've played games and finished them, it's like, wow, I felt good to finish that, because it makes you feel like you've accomplished something. But I find that, about 50% into a lot of games, the game is over. Like, there's no more challenges, there's no more growth. And I always think maybe you should spread it out a little bit over the experience, which means, you might need to slow it down a little bit. But I don't know. I think that I think there's opportunities for that, especially in the crowded market that we have now. And it is such a high-risk business. I think that you probably need to diversify just a little bit, make small investments in small teams, let them play a while. But these mega teams they got now, it's like it's all on the line. And uh, it's like, well, that's great though when it works, but when it doesn't work, you probably passed up, five, six other things that didn't look big enough for you, but probably had more potential than the big thing you did because you didn't look at the innovations that some of these small teams are able to put together.
Hmm.
And they always want things to be packaged and flashed and ready to go, you know, and it doesn't always work that way. It's called development, and I
Yeah.
think that these big companies should have some development money. Um, but they have some of these big companies. Their marketing teams are bigger than the game teams. Like the actual innovative teams, the development teams. Um, like you look at what they marketing on big games sometimes kind of gets pretty close to what they spend on production of a game.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy to me. I don't know if it's necessary or not for them to do that. I mean, they feel comfortable spending money on that, but not investing in little indie teams or something small and experiment and see maybe there's a nugget there somewhere. That doesn't even take a lot of money to do those things, but they just won't do it. Like I say, they'd rather spend $100 million than $1,000 on something. Just because the business model doesn't look big enough. But when you plant a pine tree and it's just a little seed, and then the thing grows to be 50 feet tall. I think you know, I like things like that. I like to see things progress and grow. I'm not saying I don't think everything has to go that way. I think you can have some things where you can be a little bit more ambitious on, spend a little bit more money on it. Um, you know, there's places for that too, but there's big opportunities that are missed because a lot of companies don't allocate any funds to new ideas and new development. Even though they claim they do that, they don't. They really don't. Um, and you can look that, especially with a lot of big companies, they don't even produce that much work. Really, I mean, they got a lot of people working for them, but they're only putting out, maybe a few game titles at the most,
Mm.
and with the finances they have and the amount of time that they spend on some of those, I don't know. I still think there's room in there, a little bit of room in there for something that is innovative and different. They always sell innovation, but it doesn't. I guess it doesn't always make it to the public.
Yeah.
Um, but and obviously I'm not really a business guy anyway. I'm just talking about how business affects creativity and art. That's my big problem. Because I think that you know, especially with all the diversity of talent and ideas, I think from an artist perspective, man, we could contribute so much more in our little part of it to make things so much better. And I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I kind of got off on a tangent. But I don't know. I just think that there's that thing out there that it's going to surprise somebody at some point, because someone's going to take a chance. It's going to happen, and it will become the next big deal. And I guess in a lot of ways, when something new and fresh does come out, it'll be obvious because everything else is kind of the same anyway. So
Yeah.
it'll stick out, like a watermelon on an apple tree. Just be hanging there. So,
Yeah, well said, and a lot of information there that is going to be really helpful to other artists and future artists. I have another question.
uh-huh.
Yeah, how did
Uh,
you end up in Albany, New York, with Vicarious Visions? I mean, you have all these places in the United States, but you end up there. How did that come about?
well, when I left Rockstar,
Yeah.
I was in New York, and um, you know, kind of got used to the area and wanted to get out of the city.
Oh,
Um,
Manhattan. Yeah.
yeah, because it was fun while it lasted, but then after a while, I want to see some trees and water and stuff grows up here. It's actually it's depressing in a lot of ways because economically, as the capital of New York State, it's not the capital of New York State. The capital of New York State is New York City. So there's not a lot of infrastructure here up here in the capital, upstate New York. But I have to tell you, it's beautiful, man. You could just drive 15 minutes from where I live, and you feel like you're in a different place. It's pretty. Trees, the change of years. I actually even enjoy the snow. I don't like I don't like the ice. That gets a little tricky when things get icy. But
Oh, yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, you know that. You used to live here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a and I also just after working at Rockstar, I wanted maybe to take a few steps back where I just did art again, right? Because my job there was visualization director.
At
So
Rockstar?
uh-huh.
Okay.
So I worked with a lot of people. I worked with the various studios, and with the visual development end of things, which I worked really hard. It was great. Met a lot of great people. It was a very good experience for me. But then I started thinking about other things that I would like to try and attempt to do, and I just felt it was a good time to maybe evaluate what I needed for myself a little bit more. And I think simplicity. One of the things maybe a little slower pace. So I've been here pretty much I think I moved out of New York City, I want to say about a year and a half to 2 years later. And I was doing a little work here and there, working on different things. But I started feeling like I wanted to be in a studio environment again,
Yeah.
instead of freelancing,
Mm-hmm.
because I just felt you do get energy from a collaboration, and I think we spoke about that. But I started missing, you know, being around people and trying to get feedback from my dog about my work. Because when the dog starts telling you, okay, man, you should change this competition. That's like, I mean, really, that was my dog. Her name was Venus Pincher, and like, I'm just looking for some feedback. I need something. So and I'm making a joke, but really, that was the only person I had to look at my work. And so I was like, yeah, I could go work in the studio and we're going to collaborate on something professionally. But then I know, which it proved to be correct, that these people are from all, they're doing all these different things outside of the office. We have people that did music and made swords and
Oh,
gosh, I mean, we had people that were not even artists, that were artists when they weren't working. It was cool, man. I
yeah.
mean,
I know
I
some of those. Yeah.
oh yeah, totally right. And it was a fun, eclectic place. A lot of different personalities, and it was high energy, but a positive high energy, right? So I don't know. I like that. So that was it was exactly what I needed at the time. And there's a few guys that like I met, and they had a huge impact on me, and we're still close, and close outside of the office, and not in the office. And some of these guys have actually left and moved away anyway, but we're still close. I just it's one of those little kind of stops along the way, and say you meet 100 people, and you find out that a few of them actually you connect with really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you weren't necessarily looking for that, and because you spend a lot of time with people and you get to know them,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, wow, okay, I feel all right about this. um, I needed that, and unfortunately, they all moved away. So I'm back to talking to my animals again. Um, but my daughter's, she's my biggest critic now. My daughter's, she stays with me when she's not staying with her mom, and she's good. She gives me good crits, and you know, and she'll do her thing, and I'll even let her draw. I say, hey, well, design this thing for me.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I like her creativity because it's like, man, I would have never done that, but wow, that's kind of cool. Even though it's kid drawing,
Yeah.
just like they don't care, right? They just like they got an idea and they just make it visually. They just put it down the way they think it. And so she's done some really cool things
Cool
by
sketches. Yeah.
accident. Yeah, probably by accident. But I'm like, wait a minute, that's kind of cool. I said, can Daddy scan that in and paint over it?
Uh-huh.
With it? She's like, I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's things that I've done. There are things that are on my website that you would never know my daughter helped me design. Because it looks like my work, but it's like, no, I got that idea from my daughter.
Mm.
You know, because she's free thinking, she's creative, and I remember when I was young like her. She's only 9, but
Yeah.
I just remember how free I was to think. And what I have to do a lot of times, especially when I'm doing personal work now, is I have to turn that professional thing off in my head, because a lot of times I'm doing something
Yeah.
and then immediately I hear all this input telling me to change this, do that. Ooh, I don't like blue. You know, like she started changing stuff to fit. You've been hearing this stuff for so many years, and then you become critical of your work. And it's like, yeah, I was talking to another friend of mine who I got really close to over the last maybe 6 years or so. And, you know, I was telling him, you know, a lot of times I'm trapped between being a professional and then being that kid again, where I could just do whatever the heck I want. I don't care what nobody thinks. And he said, then why don't you just do that? And I was like, yeah, why not? So
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to break habits in that I started doing art to entertain myself. I didn't need an audience. And I think there are things that I've done for myself, that I have sketches and things laying around my studio now that I'm working on. And I know no one will ever see them. And I don't care if they see them, because I don't want people passing judgment on, you know, my self-expression.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I can do commercial work, and I will continue to do that. But I don't know. My personal work is mine, and I'm going back to that time when I was free to do what I want and not worry, except myself. The only critic I need is me.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I'm going to grow and get closer to doing what I want, which I don't think that, you know, what I'm doing would be necessarily commercially viable. And I really don't want to hear if it is or not. I don't really care. Um, I'm a professional artist, and that's what I do for a living. What I do on my own time is just for fun. And I got all these little wacky, little goofy things that I do. Some of it it's just taking stuff from outside, like it's just growing, and then I start collaging stuff together. It has nothing to do with when you look at my work, which a lot of is science fiction, because I do like science fiction a lot. But I've been trying to just get away from doing anything and just trying to find new ways to express myself just by doing stuff. And it's easy to do with my daughter, because a lot of times when we want to do something together, we just go buy a bunch of stuff, paper, glue, and whatever else is out there. We just figure out what's in the store that day, and then we make something with it. And you know, it's not intended to be a masterpiece or anything like that. It's just like something we want to do. It's an experiment to have fun and be creative. And I love doing that stuff now. But I still do, you know, more serious stuff for myself. You know, I guess you could consider it more serious, but I think it's all serious, and all of it helps expand my, you know, even little fun projects I do with my daughter. They definitely stimulate my imagination. They make me think out of the box. I still approach those with the same creativity I would on a professional project. But when I do my personal work, after doing one of those little projects with her, I do think different. I do come back fresher. And and I'm trying to catch up to where I was when I was really young. And although I didn't have the execution skills, um, I was a lot more creative than I am now. Um, and I think that it's just because I've learned to be professional. I've learned to satisfy the people that are paying me. That I provide a service for them, and then they pay me. So it's my job to make sure I give them the best job possible for the money that they're paying me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's I've been doing this stuff so long that it's kind of become what I am and not who I am. And I'm trying to, maybe in a few years I'll break out and I'll be doing things that really satisfy my what I want to experience or see or feel. And it's pretty organic right now. I'm still growing and trying to figure it out, but it's fun to know that, hey, wait a minute, I won't get in trouble if I do something that somebody doesn't like.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, how are you doing with your personal work?
My personal work, or
like stuff you just want to, like your photography and all this stuff you like.
Yeah, I'm still doing them, not as much as I want to, because of we got this problem now. We can't with COVID-19. Because I was this year, I wanted to travel more and take more photos and videos and just these little things that I want to do. And doing this podcast interview is one of them. Not just for me, but for others too, like a service to others, because I feel like yourself and others who have worked for a very long time and seen a lot of things over the years, accumulated experiences and knowledge, and I want to kind of share that with others. And it's harder to share that individually. So this is a little more broadcast like, but I heard few podcasts on photography, but not so much on art. And they, to be honest, they seem kind of limited in their experience and their scope, because they only work maybe 6 years, 10 years, at most 15 years, but well, between 5 to 10 years, and within that time period, you cannot know everything. Like yourself, you just mentioned that you're still learning. I'm learning, but we also know the analog part and what we can bring to digital from our experience with analog. And we've seen some really cool stuff over the period, 40, 30 years. And we worked on some crappy stuff too. And we also mentioned those because we learn from that. And when I hear other podcasts and little commentaries, they only talk about the good things, usually. But you need that balance, and having that experience, we're not ashamed of it. You started out as a janitor. During high school, I was a grocery stocker, work on stocking the shelves. That was my high school job, and also packing bags. And I also painted fire hydrants for summer job and things. But
you learn something from all those things, though. It's not like, I mean, you could be the kind of person that just goes about it and just does it and hate it, which I never hated anything I did. I said, this is an opportunity to learn something. You know what I mean? I mean, stocking shelves is about organization, and there's things that you can get from it. But painting fire hydrants, you can get something from that. You know, I just think you can get something from anything,
Oh
really. And
yeah.
otherwise, you're just missing an opportunity. And a lot of people like to complain, and that's why they leave certain things off of their resume, right? They'll, and then they actually will talk themselves up because they feel accomplished
Yeah.
until reality hits when the first big layoff at the company where they thought they were rising, all of a sudden they found out, well, not that valuable, and you're out with everyone else. And that happens. And I've seen it happen to people that thought they just had it going on. And it's like,
Hmm.
well, dude, you're just human like the rest of us. And, you're not using this opportunity to learn and see what's going on around you. Because if you did, you wouldn't be surprised, when you're on the chopping block. You would have saw it coming.
Yeah.
I think that there's a certain level of, arrogance and narcissism, especially with younger people these days. I don't know.
Especially. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just, they feel
Entitled.
entitled. They feel more important than they actually are, and they don't realize that. Well, it's us collectively, that makes us stronger as individuals, right? And that's what I always loved about the old days when we would work in the studios, and a lot of young people could hear things like this and they won't get it because they would never have that. And I'm sorry for them because it's like, God, I wish you guys could experience what we've experienced.
Yeah.
And maybe things maybe could have grown into a different place. But most of the time, the people you know, that were maybe a little bit more humble, a little bit less narcissistic, and weren't necessarily always driven by wealth. We're driven by survival, and I'd love to have lots of money, so I could do things with it. And most of the things I do probably wouldn't be for me, but they would try to make a difference, try to make, in a small way, something better. Um, but most of the time, the people that are running these things are people that are very driven just to, and I guess it helps satisfy how important they might feel, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but there is something wrong with that when all you care about is your bottom line,